The law of envy. We humans are naturally compelled to compare ourselves with one another. We are continually measuring people's status, the levels of respect and attention they receive, and noticing any difference between what we have and what they have. For some of us, this need to compare serves as a spur to excel through our work. For others, it can turn into deep envy, feelings of inferiority and frustration that lead to covert attacks and sabotage. Nobody admits to acting out of envy. You must recognize the early warning signs, praise and bids for friendship that seem effusive out of proportion. Subtle digs at you under the guise of good-natured humor. Apparent uneasiness with your success. It is most likely to crop up among friends or your peers in the same profession. Learn to deflect envy by drawing attention away from yourself. Develop your sense of self-worth from internal standards and not incessant comparison. Keys to human nature. Of all the human emotions, none is trickier or more elusive than envy. It is very difficult to actually discern the envy that motivates people's actions, or to even know that we have suffered an envy attack from another. This is what makes it so frustrating to deal with and so dangerous. The reason for this elusiveness is simple. We almost never directly express the envy we are feeling. If we feel anger toward people because of something they said or did, we may try to disguise our anger for various reasons, that we are aware that we are feeling hostile. But envy is very different. Your task as a student of human nature is to transform yourself into a master decoder of envy. You are ruthless in your analysis and your determination to get to the root of what motivates people. The signs that people emit of envy are harder to discern, but they exist, and you can master the language with some effort and subtle discernment. Think of it as an intellectual challenge. Before immersing yourself in the subtleties of the emotion, it is important to distinguish between passive and active envy. All of us in the course of a day will inevitably feel some pangs of envy as we unconsciously monitor the people around us and sense that they might have more. If these pangs rise to the level of consciousness and are a bit acute, we might say something hurtful or mean-spirited as a way to vent the emotion. But generally, as we experience this passive form of envy, we do not do anything that would in any meaningful way harm the relationship with a friend or colleague. In detecting signs of passive envy in others, for instance, little put-downs and offhand comments, you should simply tolerate this as a fact of being a social animal. Sometimes, however, this passive envy turns active. The underlying sense of inferiority is too strong, leading to hostility that cannot be vented by a comment or put down. Your goal is to detect the signs of this more acute form of envy before it turns dangerous. You can do this in 3 ways. By learning the signs of envy that manage to leak through, by being aware of the types of people who are more prone to acting on envy, and by understanding the circumstances and actions that might trigger active envy in people. You can never see all of the actions motivated by envy. People are simply too good at disguising it. But using all 3 decoding devices will increase your chances of detection. Signs of envy. Although the signs are subtle, envious feelings tend to leak out and can be detected if you're observant. Seeing one such sign in isolation might indicate passive or weak envy. You want to look for combinations or repetitions of the following signs, a pattern before moving to alert mode. Micro-expressions. When people first experience envy, they have not yet fooled themselves into thinking it is something else, and so they are more prone to leakage than later on. That is why first impressions are often the most accurate and should be given added weight in this case. Envy is most associated with the eyes. You will notice the envier's eyes momentarily boring into you with a look that suggests disdain and a touch of hostility. With this look, the corners of the mouth will often be turned down, the nose in a sneering, somewhat upturned position, the chin jutting out. Although the look will be a little too direct and held a little too long, it still will not last more than a second or two. It is usually followed with a strained, fake smile. Often you will see the look by accident as you suddenly turn your head in their direction, or you will feel their eyes burning into you without directly looking at them. If you see such looks in the first few encounters with someone, and they happen more than once, be on the lookout for a dangerous envier entering your life. Poisonous praise. A major envy attack is often preceded by little envy bites. offhand comments expertly designed to get under your skin. Confusing paradoxical praise is a common form of this. You feel confused. They have praised you, but in a way that makes you uncomfortable. These comments will also come at moments chosen to cause maximum doubt and damage. For instance, just when you have heard the good news and feel a flush of joy. Poisonous praise almost always indicates envy. They feel the need to praise, but what dominates is the underlying hostility. If they have a habit of praising in this way, if you experience it several times, it is probably an indication of something more intense stirring within them. Backbiting. If people like to gossip, particularly about common acquaintances, you can be sure they will gossip about you. And gossip is a frequent cover for envy, a convenient way to vent it by sharing malicious rumors and stories. If you ever get wind of a story they have spread about you, subtly or not so subtly negative, only one such instance should be enough to raise your antennae. What indicates active envy in this case is that they are your friend, and they feel the need to vent their underlying hostility to a third party rather than keep it to themselves. In any event, serial gossipers do not make loyal and trustworthy friends. The push and pull. Enviers often use friendship and intimacy as the best way to wound the people they envy. Through the closeness they establish, they are able to gather material on you and find your weak points. Suddenly, after your emotions are engaged, they criticize you in pointed ways. The criticism is confusing, not particularly related to anything you have done, but still you feel guilty. They then return to their initial warmth. You are trapped between the warm friendship and the occasional pain they inflict. In criticizing you, they are experts at picking out any possible flaws in your character, or words you might have regretted, and giving them great emphasis. When you've had enough and decide to defend yourself or criticize them or break off the friendship, they can now ascribe to you a mean or even cruel streak and tell others of this. You will notice in their past other intense relationships with dramatic breakups, always the other person's fault. And at the source of this pattern, something hard to discern is that they choose to befriend people whom they envy for some quality, then subtly torture them. In general, criticism of you that seems sincere but not directly related to anything you have actually done is usually a strong sign of envy. People want to bully and overwhelm you with something negative, both wounding you and covering any tracks of envy. Envier types. According to the psychoanalyst Melanie Klein, certain people are prone to feeling envy their entire lives, and this begins in early infancy. A pattern is set for their entire lives. They are children and later adults for whom nothing is ever quite good enough. Depending on their psychological makeup, they will tend to conform to certain envying types. It is of great benefit to be able to recognize such types early on, because they are the ones most likely to turn active with their envy. The following are 5 common varieties of enviers, how they tend to disguise themselves, and their particular forms of attack. The leveler. When you first meet them, levelers can seem rather entertaining and interesting. They also seem to have a keen nose for injustice and unfairness in this world. But where they differ from people with genuine empathy for underdogs is that levelers cannot recognize or appreciate excellence in almost anyone, except those who are dead. You will notice that though they can put others down, they do not take easily to any jokes at their expense. They often celebrate low culture and trash, because mediocre work does not stir their insecurities. Their main goal is to bring everyone down to the same mediocre level they occupy. This sometimes means leveling not only achievers and the powerful, but also those who are having too good a time, who seem to be enjoying themselves too much, or who have too great a sense of purpose, which levelers lack. Be wary around such types, particularly in the workplace, because they will make you feel guilty for your own impulse to excel. The self-entitled slacker. In the world today, many people rightfully feel entitled to have success and the good things in life, but they usually understand that this will require sacrifice and hard work. Some people, however, feel they deserve attention and many rewards in life, as if these are naturally due to them. These self-entitled slackers are generally quite narcissistic. They will make the briefest outline for a novel or screenplay they want to write, or an idea, for a brilliant business, and feel that that is enough to attract praise and attention. But deep down, these slackers feel insecure about their ability to get what they want. That is why they have never really developed the proper discipline. When they find themselves around high achievers who work very hard and have earned true respect for their work, this will make them aware of the doubts about themselves they have been trying to repress. They will find a way to sabotage such people. They will criticize you in vague, dismissive ways, then make themselves seem like your victim. They will find some reason to blame you for their lack of success. They will act quite passive-aggressive. If you have the misfortune to become friends with such a type, you will slowly feel drained of the energy and big dreams that brought you so far. Test them by asking for evidence of the hard work they have done and look at their career path. That will say all you need to know. The status fiend. These enviers are generally older and have worked all their lives to reach a position of stability and respect. They are highly sensitive to any slight about their reputation. They are good at disguising their envy as they are experts at the political game. What you will detect is that their smiles and looks of approval always seem somewhat strained. They praise you, but there is a slight edge to their voice. Their congratulations seem grudging. Often they will use friendships, getting you to confide in them and talk about your ambitions. They will seem supportive, but all the while they are gathering information to use against you. They will find ways to make you look bad in social situations or to humiliate you subtly. If you suspect you are dealing with such a type, you must take a step back and realize that it is not about you or anything you have done to them. They have probably been envious their entire lives. As a barometer, see how they treat other young and successful people like yourself. Look at their career and see if it has been marked by signs of burnout and insecurity. If they are in your field, you will sense their difficulty staying current with the latest trend. In dealing with them, you must repress any feelings of hostility and keep things on a friendly footing. If you make them into an outright enemy, you are only feeding their insecurities and making your life much harder. The attacher. We all naturally feel some envy and hostility toward powerful, highly successful people. Their status makes us feel acutely inferior. But for attachers, envy is the predominant emotion they feel toward anyone who has achieved such success. They latch onto these people, enter their circle, and become their assistant or servant in some capacity. They make themselves useful. They are less interested in money or status than in getting close to the enviable object and hurting it. They will sabotage you in secret in ways you cannot detect, take what they can from you, and then move on to another target. These types are generally men and women of ambition who have failed to get where they want through their own efforts and who choose this alternative route. Their modus operandi is quite stealthy. They are very good at concealing their envy. They can act as if they love and admire you, even though behind the scenes everything they do is governed by envy. You will often detect them through their history, which will reveal an endless series of prior conflicts with employers and friends. They cannot settle in one job or position. In dealing with such people, the best strategy is to get them out of your life as quickly as possible. They will inevitably cause some harm. The insecure master. These people are very tricky. They have a high position and can even seem like overt believers in your cause. But behind the scenes, they are insecure about their status. They feel that you are more talented than they are, and they know that others see you as rising to the top. They see the younger people coming up as possible threats to their position. They will inevitably try to sabotage you in ways that are both ruthless and clever. They will talk of the importance of loyalty and make you feel guilty about any signs of ambition on your part. If you have such a master, it is best to keep your distance, maintain a respectful relationship, but never show your true ambitions. If they are truly destructive, you should plan on leaving as soon as possible, but not before finding another position. If you confront them or make them suspicious of you, they will strike back doubly hard. Remember, some people's insecurity is so high, they will see signs of possible disloyalty in almost anything you do or say. You must be on your guard. Envy triggers. Even if people have not chronic tendencies toward envy, certain situations can arise that will set off bouts of envy, often to a high degree. These situations are often unexpected and can create intense strain and instability. You must be particularly sensitive to such situations in order to protect yourself. The following are 5 common triggers to active envy. Sudden success. Your career is on a high and people are talking about you. You will naturally attract envy from all quarters. Be extra careful and attentive. Have people around you whom you trust. Maintain your cool and distance from those who seem overly fawning. Be wary of changes in people's behavior. Promotions. People who were once your equals or even friends will tend to be envious of your good fortune. The best strategy is to seem like you are treating them the same as before, to not act superior in any way, but not to become too familiar or close. Friendships that are altered by your promotion can become infected with envy. Honeymoons. If you enter a new relationship, people around you, particularly those not in relationships or in ones that are not going well, will tend to feel some envy toward you. Your natural tendency is to talk excitedly about your happiness. Better to keep it under wraps and respect the insecurity of friends and colleagues by not flaunting it. Artists and innovators. If you are in a field with a high level of competition, such as the arts, or you are trying to break new ground, you will tend to stir up unusual amounts of envy. Do not take this personally. Try to deflect it by sharing the fruits of your labors as much as possible with others, or by finding allies to help you get work done and spread the glory. Job security. In the world today, many people are insecure about their jobs. If you have a secure position and others know it, you are more likely to inspire envy. Better to disguise your good fortune as best you can. Try to mix and befriend people on all levels. If people envy your security, they will be more motivated to uncover any mistake you make and even fabricate some. Deflecting envy. As with any disease, an overabundance of envy tends to create a negative environment in which it becomes contagious. If you are in a group or team and envy becomes the predominant emotion, people will work at cross purposes, secretly gloat over the failures of others, and even feel pleasure if the team fails as a whole, all of which becomes self-destructive. If you are the leader of such a group, you must take active measures to mitigate and deflect envy. To do so, it is useful to consider the example of Julius Caesar. In ancient Rome, generals would lead their troops in battle and accumulate almost monarchical powers to deflect envy and to make the soldiers feel they had some control and could share in the glory. They had the tradition of the imperator. The soldiers would shout that title in approval of their general. Julius Caesar took this much further. He went out of his way to converse with his soldiers and get their input on various matters. When the imperator election took place, he was always down among them and taking the vote seriously. When he was consul, he shared all the bonuses and accolades he received with the people, whom he made a great show of consulting. He went much further than any other leader in giving back to the people and letting them absorb his glory. This is why he retained his power for so long. His example should be etched in your mind. The following are some ways to implement this philosophy. Your own value system. You should start from the premise that there is nothing you can do to stop people from feeling envy. It is hardwired into human nature, and you cannot help occasionally stirring it up. You must instead work to try to deflect and mitigate these feelings as best you can. If you depend on the attention and validation of others for your sense of self-worth, you will always be insecure because this validation is so fleeting. You must find a way to derive your sense of self from internal standards and not worry about the judgments of others. Giving. Another way to divert envy is to be aware of those moments when you might be inspiring it and to take measures to dilute it by being extra attentive and generous. For instance, if you are heading a group and a lot of the attention is going to you, be extra attentive to your subordinate. If people envy your superior skills, share some of your tricks with them. You are most likely to feel envy when you are left out of something, so make a point of including others as much as possible. It is much easier to deal with people's envy by being kind and generous than by descending to their level and trying to assert your superiority. If you are the boss or leader of a group and you act as if your status entitles you to special privileges, you are infecting the group with an anti-democratic spirit that will stir up envy, secretly or overtly. Adopt the Caesar-style method. Share the wealth and the attention. You will accomplish twice as much with less infighting. Talking less about yourself. It is always wise to keep the focus on other people and make them the center of attention. Every time you find yourself talking about something you have done or some good fortune you've experienced, you should practice self-deprecation. If people notice that you are being modest, they are less likely to feel envy. The status game. People are continually judging and measuring your status. By being aware of this dynamic, you can take the clever Caesar, like strategy of occasionally lowering your status for strategic purposes. Let others take the lead and receive credit for an idea or accomplishment. Downplay your contribution and make them feel better about themselves. As a leader, take the blame for failures and share the credit for success. You will get more done and avoid stirring up unnecessary emotion. The transparency method. If you work in a group or team and there is growing envy within the group, one way to deflect it is to make it known that you yourself are feeling it as well. It is best to do this at a moment when you notice the rivalry and envy in the group is particularly acute. For instance, you might say that a person who left the group has received an incredible job offer and is making a lot of money, and you are feeling particularly envious of that person. You admit this openly and perhaps make a joke about it. Your openness and humor about a feeling that everyone shares will have a positive diffusing effect. You are all suffering from envy, but it is a normal emotion, nothing to be so embarrassed about. Another similar method is to show how you were once in the same inferior position. It is always easy for people to envy those in power, particularly if they seem to have been born into it. Better to present yourself as a person who struggled to get where you are and who faced tremendous odds. Appeal to people's empathy. The anti-envy tactic. The greatest genius of Caesar's method is that by being so incredibly magnanimous, he stirs up a different emotion from envy. It is not that people stop envying Caesar, but they cannot help but admire him and even feel grateful to him. The way to do this is simple. A. You must give extra rewards and bestow honors on those who help you, acting as if these favors represent no effort on your part. B. You must make this a regular occurrence, bestowing twice as many rewards as the other leaders and generals. C. You must do all this in an easy, natural style, making the recipients feel that you are a friend and not a superior. No other leader had ever gone so far in this direction, and that is why he was able to retain his power for so long. Most people's natural tendency is to accumulate and not to give. You must become a master of the opposite direction. The goal here is not to become a martyr to such magnanimity, but to secure your power by turning people into your allies. The rewards must be real and valuable. With people dependent on you for their gains, they will likely think twice before biting the hand that feeds them. The point here is not to stop people from feeling envious, which is a futile task, but to simply create a counterbalance and pay back some of the goodwill you have received. In general, if you are in a position of envy, you should practice this tactic on a regular basis. It has to be genuine. Transmuting envy. Although envy is as old as human nature itself, this emotion was elevated to a new level in the ancient world through the advent of Christianity. Envy now became one of the 7 deadly sins. Among some early Christian philosophers and thinkers, envy was considered the deadliest of all the sins. This had a paradoxical effect. Suddenly people were much more conscious of feeling envy, but also of experiencing it from others. It led to a more repressed culture in which people felt ashamed to show or admit they felt it. This only heightened its power as the number of ways people found to disguise it multiplied. This led to an interesting discovery. As difficult as it is to master the envy we feel, it is even more difficult to control the envy we stir up. As Benjamin Franklin discovered, you can stir up the most intense forms of envy and hatred simply by doing the right things in life, working hard, being creative, getting ahead. This leads us to a very important counterintuitive realization. We should not try to stop ourselves from feeling envy, but embrace it as a way to learn about ourselves and our own potential. If we try to repress it, it will come out in other forms that are harmful to ourselves and others. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche came to the conclusion that envy underlies the resentment that so many people feel toward their lot in life. Their sense of having failed makes them feel envious and angry toward those who seem to be succeeding. The problem is that in a competitive culture like ours, it is impossible to ever get rid of the sources of envy, and so this resentment grows. It leads to a strange kind of contradiction. On the one hand, we live in a culture that celebrates the self and the right of the individual to express his or her unique qualities, but at the same time we fear standing out too much and stirring up envy and hostility. We try to find some middle ground in which we can express some of our uniqueness, but not bring too much attention to ourselves. We all have some ambivalence about our own power and success. This creates tremendous tension within us and causes all kinds of perverse behavior. For instance, to fit in better and not draw too much attention to ourselves, we will unconsciously lessen our creative spirit and hold back some of our best ideas. We will unconsciously gravitate toward the styles and ideas that others are already doing, or consciously adapt them as our own. We will hold back any signs of too much ambition. We frequently fall into the trap of imitating others because they have a lot of attention and we hope to absorb some of this for ourselves. Another way we manage this is to criticize those who stand out too much for their success or creativity. We become really adept at disguising our envy and focusing on the status of these successful people as undeserved. There is a certain pleasure and power in that. This is why societies such as the ancient Greeks, who celebrated the great individuals and rewarded people for standing out, will always prove culturally superior to others who are always trying to tamp down and equalize. These equalizing societies have nothing to aspire to. What Nietzsche discovered is the paradoxical value of envy. Feeling some envy can actually spur us on to accomplish great things. If we are honest with ourselves, we can use envy to become more ambitious and focused, giving us the kind of productive energy we need to get ahead. We can recognize that there is something we want and that we have been holding ourselves back. This is why we are envious. We can push past our self-limitations and make that person we envy feel ashamed by competing with them and surpassing them. We can convert the base emotion of envy into emulation and competition. We look at people who are strong and successful and we study their strengths. We do not feel ashamed about our envy. We use it. Reversal. If you constantly attract envy, you may be acting in ways that are counterproductive. You may be focusing too much on your own accomplishments and trying to gain attention. This will tend to create reactions that make it harder to focus on your work and advance your career. The key is to become aware of this dynamic and take steps to reverse it. You can share your knowledge and experience, helping others achieve their goals. This will diffuse envy and create a more positive environment. Ultimately, envy can be a powerful force for growth if you harness it correctly. By recognizing envy in yourself and others, you can take steps to deflect and transmute it, turning it into a source of motivation and inspiration rather than a destructive force.